Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Julio Perez for module number 9. We've come a long way. First of all, I want to start by saying that every organization, whether they're a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 1000, 1500, or even government organization, they all have some sort of values, group system to work together. Sometimes it works for some places, at other times it does not. You can tell which are some of the more successful ones by, for example, Lucasfilm from 1978, 77 up to 2012. Before they sold to Disney, their organization was very friendly, group friendly. They worked with the women. They were considered a marquee organization. You want to go to football, the San Francisco 49ers between 1979 to 1996 were considered the marquee franchise. Andy Bartolo went ahead and brought a complete different philosophy that went ahead and improved upon a team that was dismal. And looking at this assignment this week, we've got 8 different situations involved in when we're trying to get the group to work together. There isn't going to be any right answer. And unfortunately, I may go a little bit over time in this one, hopefully not too much to get dinged. But these are important things that, if you're going to make change and you want the group to follow, it has to start from the top. If you cannot start from the top and trickle it down at each step of the way with proper explanation, but you have to have that accountability, it doesn't work. So looking at the first example, you have individual X who's missed a deadline. And it says, to make adjustments to go ahead and make the delivery for X on time. So if an individual is missing a deadline, you need to find out what happened. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to find out what happened, what got this individual to miss it, and then find a way to correct it, whether it might be easing the workload or maybe changing some of the job assignments. But it's something that the supervisor has to tackle from the beginning. If individual X sees that you're tackling this from the beginning, that individual will be more inclined to perform better the next time around. The next one here says, if you knew we could improve X but didn't tell anyone you can act on this information, well, that's the problem. You have to tell people. If you don't tell X that you can improve upon them, then what's the point? Don't tell them after the fact, tell them before. Too many times as supervisors in an organization, we tend to worry about supervising and not about leadership. They're two different things. And that has to be a philosophy that has to come from the top. So as we come to the third one, customer focus, I heard one of my customers complaining about X, so I asked them to tell me more so that I can improve the quality of X. Very important. Get the information from the customer. What was it that they didn't like? You need to make sure that it wasn't something biased. It wasn't something against the individual personally, or against the company, or the individual just trying to complain for the heck of it. If it's something based, maybe the X didn't have a good day, maybe X is going through some personal problems. That's where we come in and try to find out what can happen. This was a complaint. This is what I was told. What happened to you? Is everything okay? And let's work from there. The fourth one, I missed an opportunity to incorporate the lessons we learned on my last project from our most recent project. Why? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. There are things that you're going to miss. Every project is different, just like every college course is different. You take 5 college courses and you think you're going to follow the same pattern for studying. It's not going to always work that way. The first class might be good. The second one, you might not be able to study the same way as the first one. The third one, you're going to be grounding and pounding, and you're going to be pulling it in. But the biggest thing to learn is to learn from the mistakes, from not including the information on that, and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And it's going to happen, but make sure that it's streamlined. And I apologize for that slap. Family member there. Hey, we're trying to get this in. The next one is win as one team. This is going to always be a problem because there's too many egos out there. Everybody wants to be number one, and people always want to go ahead and get the credit. It's the nature. Nobody wants to be number 2. Everybody wants to be number 1. For example, I believe my boss solution wasn't going to work, and I said so. Okay, that's important. If you don't agree or you think that the position that the boss is going in a direction is not going to work, maybe you want to go ahead and say something. A good example I had was that my boss is trying to institute zones again. Well, I explained to him in a cordial way, because you have to know how to do it also. You can't just say you don't want to do it just because it's more work on you or because it's going to upset everybody when you really don't know why. But You got to go ahead and explain to them why it wasn't working. In this case, I went ahead and said, listen, the problem that I have with zones is that we don't have the personnel for it, and the personnel that we have, they're not going to go ahead and be as enthusiastically about it, because if you put one person in one zone, that's going to be a work-generated zone, and then you put another one in a zone where they're going to be just driving around, they're not going to be happy about it. So it's important to let the boss know and offer alternatives, which leads us to the next one. I continued to talk about why my team's decision on X was wrong, even after the team agreed to support it. What happens here is that sometimes we tend to just go with the flow, and that's not good. In order to make a product work, whether it be government work or in the private sector, there are going to be bumps and bruises and people are going to collide. You have to be able to talk about things. There are going to be some hot heads. There's going to be some people that are going to be upset, but at the end, as a collective, everyone should be able to come to an agreement as to the way they're going to proceed with a certain project. Very important. The next 2 cents is acting with integrity and humility. I stayed focused on solving the problem with X instead of blaming someone for it and acting like it wasn't my problem. This is also another important one, because reality of it is, we'll get something that gets assigned to, or gets assigned to our partner, but we happen to be involved in it in some side way. It's very quick to say, well, that's his problem, that's his situation, that's his case. Well, it takes a little bit more courage, a little bit more effort to go ahead and say, hey, you know what, we've got this, what do you need help on? Let's go ahead and tackle this together. Let's not go ahead and blame. Let's solve it. Let's get a solution. Don't give me a problem, give me a solution. This is very important, and unfortunately, with this one right here, if in an organization this is not kept in check, you're going to have dissension, and that's when you go into what I call guerrilla warfare. If you read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, this is where individuals start congregating together and start going against the system, whether it be against the organization or certain groups of people in leadership, because they're going to feel like, hey, you know what, this guy will be quick to throw me under the bus. As soon as something happens, he's not supportive. The next one, I could have given more credit to my teammate members for X, but I missed the opportunity. This should never happen. You always have to give credit. You never get successful by just going on ahead and doing it yourself. There's always someone along the way that helps you out. And finally, the last 4. Being accountable, continuous improvement. I was going to miss a deadline on X. I took the initiative to tell my team leader so we could make adjustments and still deliver X on time. Wait a minute, that's the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, here it is. I made sure my team over-delivered on our promise to X, being accountable. You're going to always want to make that person look good. And in this kind of work, when you're working on a project and the project is not yours, you always want to work, if you're assigned to another team project and someone else is the leader, you want to always do your best, your very best, because when the coin changes and it comes out in your favor, that individual is going to remember what you did and will do the same thing for you. The next one, I delivered just what was expected based on the process in place, no more, no less. Like I said before, the person that you work with, if you help them out on whatever it is they're doing, I guarantee you they will remember it. We're human creatures. We remember things. They will go ahead and reciprocate this. If you reciprocate less, trust me, they'll do the same. The last 2, now the real last 2. Grow our people. I asked my best performer what I did that worked and what I did that got in the way. It's always important to coach your coworkers. Let them know what makes things work for you and what didn't work for you. It's not going to necessarily say it's going to work for them, but they can take the feedback, they can take that historical perspective, look at their way of doing things, and maybe they might make a tweak or 2 for the way they're doing things. The last one, I have not had a face-to-face development plan conversation with ex-employee since the beginning of last year. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Every 6 months, at least, you should have something like this. You need to invest on your employees. You have to. If you don't invest on your employees, the difference between a good organization and a bad organization can be told by the number of people who resign, the number of people who get fired for little Mickey Mouse Donald Duck violations, which they might have not gotten fired for had they been made aware of it. And on top of that, the morale. Morale is a killer in the agency, on top of not giving them any raises. This concludes my presentation, and unfortunately in this module I had to go a little bit over time. I'm coming up on the 10-minute marker. I'll probably get another minute in there. I hope that the professor doesn't gig me for this. The reality of it is this, to sum this up. If you want to change culture in an organization, everyone from the top down has got to be willing to come out with conscientious policies that everyone's going to follow, people are going to believe in, have individuals along the way that will be explaining every part of the procedure along the way for those that don't understand it, and make sure that the objectives of the employees are still consistent with the organization, because people change over time. You know, we can always look at all these different dynamics, different studies that have been done over the years on group culture, but when it comes down to putting things in practice, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And the way to have it is to go ahead and be on the ground looking at every one of those individuals and constantly be building them up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good evening.